making and use it as props or tools in publicly engaged art, in exercises. So I'm going to invite you guys, if you want to, participate in an exercise. And it piggybacks a lot on what Glenn said. He talked about cross-pollination. And when you refer to that document that I sent you, it's kind of rote, please keep in mind that it's just a suggestion. It's an idea. And I encourage and welcome and hope that more of you will also present to us such ideas. Because before we can even begin to think about these wonderful ideas that Derek has come up with, and Shell and J. Michael Walker, we have to have a structure for how are we going to make those ideas come to fruition. It's wonderful to just talk, but how are we going to make them come to fruition, and how are we going to do it in a manner that's such that one person does not take on all the work, or two, or three, or four? Can we delegate, and can we take on equal labor? So the Spirit led me to the number 33 only because when Derek and I were getting together and thinking of people to invite to this focus group, we kept getting closer to 30. And I said, hey, what about 33? You know, that's how old Christ was when he died, and Derek liked that number, so we picked a random number of 33. Tony Scott confided in me that she's concerned about having it be a number because it sounds exclusive, as if we can't even keep the doors open for possibly more. So that's something to think about too. So lately I've been calling it BAILA Core. However, 33 provided for me an opportunity to structure what I'm calling just planting seeds for structure. In that, I was able to come up with a frame of 11, right? So if I divide 11 into 33, we get 3 each. So I thought of tasks that needed to be done, and I coupled them and I paired them. And what came to my mind was 11 tasks divided into subjects that were related, 3 people taking on each task as leaders. We're all leaders, as leaders. And then it would be up to that seed, up to that pod, to elicit help from the rest of the 400 members in BAILA. Hey, you want to help us with grant writing? Hey, you want to help us with planning an exhibition? Hey, you want to help us with the Biennale? But the 3 would be the core, or the 4 or the 5, however we see it. So, again, this is just a suggestion. Knowing people here, I just started placing people, just thinking, hey, who would work here, who would work that? But obviously I don't want you to think that I'm expecting you to take on these tasks. So what I've done here is I made a little painting, a collage painting. I stayed up with Shell all night in my home, pulled an all-nighter with Shell in a different area. And the Spirit was speaking to me through what Glenn was thinking about, and Derek with the organic. So I invite you, if you want to participate in this, if you'd like, I did not print out that little form, and I'm not going to read through it because you all had it for a week and a half, right? You can read through it yourself. But what I did is I reformatted it in a way that I can digest it better because I'm a painter. I put it in a way that speaks to me. I always speak about the Spirit. So, you know, a lot of you know I'm Cuban born. I incorporate a lot of the Orisha, the Yoruba religion, into my work. And right now, if you go around the city, you'll see the ceiba tree in bloom. It's a big green tree with a lot of thorns in it, and it's got beautiful, lush pink flowers in it. And the reason I mention the ceiba tree is because in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Cuba, in parts of Asia, it's considered to be a sacred tree. It's believed to house the souls of the ancestors, and it speaks to us through a lot of power. So please, when you go around town, you see these big pink flowers with these green, that's the ceiba tree. You are not to cut it down, or the spirits of the ancestors will not have a place to live, to reside. And they always come into bloom between August and October every year, and then in February they drop the fruit. The fruit of the ceiba tree looks like a pod. It hardens, it opens up, and it reveals what's called the ceiba floss. It was a resource for the ancestors, for the slaves, for the indigenous. They did things like made pillows out of it, stuffed mattresses with it, made dolls out of it, and the airlines even stuffed seats with it. So my kids and I are ceiba tree fanatics. We go around and this is the floss. And this is the, you can pass it around and feel it. It's like cotton. So go ahead and pass it around. There's a little interactive practice here. what I did here is those 11 categories that I suggested, I made them as seeds. So this to me is Mother Earth. As you know, the globe at the core of the mantle is what? Fire. And I think it's very appropriate because we, I think, have been on fire. To me, it seems like since we all many of us went to the CAM Board of Directors meeting on September 17th. We spoke our words. Some of us came prepared. I presented in writing with several copies some suggestions, which included a biennale. But my biennale was not as grand as the one that Derek and Shell are presenting. Mine was just focusing on CAM. And I love the ideas that they're presenting about taking it, expanding it to incorporate many more. So here is Mother Earth, and we're all on fire right now. I think the floodgates of heaven are pouring out with this transitioning happening in CAM. And here is the Earth, and here are the seeds, the 11 structures, which I suggest. So what I did do is, take your time, I'm not going to read all this, but what I do want to say in general is several of you here were at the first BAILA roundtable that we had. Who was at the first BAILA roundtable we had in December 2011? Was nobody there? Well, the very first, you were there? With Golden State Mutual Foundation, and Cecil Ferguson was there, and Miriam. Charles Burnett was there. Where did he go? Charles Burnett was there. And so Samela Lewis was there. She said something very important to all of us who were there. And she said this, quote unquote, "You don't have the time," she said, "to do all this." She said at the first BAILA roundtable in 2011, "You guys can't do this by yourself. You need administrators. You need administrators to do these things. You are not administrators. You are artists. You must create art. You've got to create art." That's what she said. And I know that to be true. I ran my studio for 5 years in Chinatown as a public space, as an official nonprofit. And I found out that a lot of you were here to watch me go through that with all the board meetings and all the bureaucracy, and I found that those 5 years of administrative work totally took away from my art practice. I'm never going to do it again, so my help stops here. It's wonderful that we have people like Shell Barber. So I think what we need to do is, in order to go beyond the grassroots level and take it up to the trunk of the ceiba tree, we need to find administrators, those of us who are artists, so that we can focus on what? Creating our art. So Shell, we need so many more people like you. Okay, so what I see is that those of us who want to just continue to work at the grassroots level, I'd be very happy to continue to organize roundtables and work on the website. I'd be happy to do that. But I definitely don't want to work up here. I don't want to incorporate again a 501c3. I don't want to open up a bank account again. Someone's going to have to do that, you know. I don't want to build this kind of institution anymore. However, building that is definitely more powerful, and we need to do that. Who's going to do that? What I would like to do, however, is have a BAILA Artist Advisory Board, so that we artists can just advise the administrators, such as Shell, if she wants to be an administrator with her whole team. Hey, this is what we think about the administrating that you're doing. Here's what we think you should be doing with our money in the bank account. Because I'm not going to have anything to do with that. I'm not going to file any more taxes. So I invite you, if you would like to, and you don't have to, you can all skip it. If you want to, here I'm going to read them out, to just take some tape and put your face in an area that interests you. And I would suggest that we try to be as balanced as possible and try to keep it to as close to 3 in a pod as possible, because we need to balance the work. For example, the committee, so to speak, or the pod or the seed that's working on grants. We'll need to also speak to the committee that's working on studio visits and collectors, because it's pertinent for those people, for the professors who are going to recommend you, or the collectors who are going to recommend you to come into your studio to visit. And the reason I put Michelle Papillon in that one, for example, that if she were to help out with the collections and the studio visits, it would be like a double benefit for her, because in doing that and getting that information from everybody else, she could also bring those collectors to Papillon Art Gallery. So that's why I put that for example, if Michelle were interested in that whatever, or whomever works on the collectors and bringing the collectors to the studio visits, Michelle Papillon's gallery will ultimately benefit, because that artist could say, hey, look, you don't like my art, Mr. Rich Collector, but check out Michelle Papillon's gallery. She's representing a whole bunch of artists. And again, these are just my suggestions. You might see some categories, some tasks that aren't mentioned here. You might say, hey, Lily, hey, I don't like this mentoring and community outreach. You need to add this to that, or you need to add this to that, or this is redundant, or you need another pod, okay? So I'm going to read them out to you. And I put some of us on really close to the fire because I think some of us are really on fire right now. But anyway, there's the press and the media. Okay, that's key. We have Greg Pitts, who writes beautifully for us. He gets published in mainstream art periodicals. Thank you. You don't, do whatever you want to do, but that's why I put you there. We have Tika Lark Fleming, who has her own newspaper, the Larchmont Chronicle. Over here we have roundtables and websites. That's where I want to stay, if you don't mind. So I'm going to put my little face here, and just like
supposed to be roundtables and websites.
This is just my ideas. And the only reason I put those two together is because the website is really instrumental in getting roundtable discussions.
Well, that's where I'm trying to think.
Cut
my name out and stick it on there too.
Yeah, and the reason I picked you is because you're really good with web designing. For these roundtables that I organize, it literally takes me about a year to secure roundtables with the institution. I've been talking with the Getty Museum for a year and a half and meeting with them. And so we're having our next roundtable with the Getty Museum and the Getty Research Institute together on November 4th, okay? The same thing with the Hammer Museum. When we had the Hammer Museum roundtable, it took me a year of meetings. And all that is about relationship building and trust building. And that's all that's about. So I'm going to put my little face here. And I'm going to read these out, and I would invite you can all come at the same time, and this is the end of my presentation. And then you can take a look at some of the things that I wrote here. When it comes to working with museums and galleries, we have to redefine the relationship with CAM. With art galleries, I recently had a painting on exhibit in one of the Culver City galleries, and Walter Maciel said to me that he is very concerned that art galleries are going to become extinct because of the art fairs and because collectors are now going straight into the artist studio and buying straight from the artist. So when the group who deals with museums and galleries, I would suggest that they take all this into consideration, that they expand the horizons and look at New York. Whoever's going to work on exhibitions and publicity, to remember that you got to get Black Hollywood and White Hollywood. So there's a little white reporter saying here, I love black art too. There's radio, there's talk shows, Queen Latifah. Let's see. For crits and workshops, I think this is absolutely key that we have crits and workshops because we have to have a strong body of work. That's paramount. And in that crits and workshops, some suggestions that I have, for example, we could bring professors in from UCLA, USC, CalArts to give the crits. They had a talk about a year and a half ago. I went to it. And they were presenting the work that they were doing, the money they were giving to revitalize downtown LA. Olga Garay was there talking, CalArts was there talking, UCLA was there talking. So I would suggest, and I spoke with the director of Art Space, those of you who are CalArts graduates, you have an edge here with that Art Space. And UCLA graduates as well, because they're working already with UCLA and CalArts graduates. Mentoring and community outreach. We have a wonderful person, Dr. Jordan Harris, who's come to every BAILA meeting practically. She is an art collector. But on top of that, she ran a very successful mentoring program at Cedars-Sinai. She has been talking to me for months, encouraging me, Lily, you need a mentoring program. You got to help out those poor Black visual arts students in graduate school and undergrad, like myself, just a couple of months ago, who are suffering and need to understand how to navigate the boundaries. So that's a very important thing. That's why I put you, Dr. Jordan Harris, in there. We have, of course, research and education is key. We've got the biennales. We need to do a lot of research on the biennales. Let's see, BAILA, Facebook, and individual grants. The reason I put individual grants down here is because the big grants come up here at the corporate level, right, the incorporation level. But I think it would be wonderful if somebody or some people were to research individual grants and share that information. We as Black people so much act like crabs in the barrel and don't want to share information. And frankly, white people are constantly sharing information. When they're in a gallery, they're constantly telling the galleries, hey, you got to check out my friend. You got to check out my friend Stephen J. Brooks, who's a great artist. We black people don't do that.
That's right.
There are people who have best friends in this. There are people who have best friends in this room who are represented at top galleries, and not once have they ever said, hey, check out my friend Derek Maddox. He's great. So I would say that we need to have people who would find the individual grants and share them. We could have some place on our website or on our Facebook page that constantly posting individual grants, So I would invite you all just to come on up and take a look at this, and if you'd like, please put your name on an area that might interest you. Can you take a minute to do that? And then we'll know people's interests. I will cut them for you. Anybody want to come up and paste their name on? Okay. Please, you guys, come up with ideas for structure too. This is just an idea. That's all it is. Just an idea. I put 33 stars in the tree because in the end, whatever happens, whether or not we become a great big nonprofit corporation, I hope that all of us are overlooking from the top of the Save a Tree and making sure that everyone's doing, you know, that our administrators are doing what we want them to do.
I think that's the next important thing.
And I'll glue these when I get home. I'll just try to put them on as well as you can so I can glue them up. Yeah, make sure you put it nice and tight. Everybody, this is Ashley Nash. She's a USC journalism graduate student. Ashley Nash, everybody. She has to go now. You're welcome, Aaron. If you think something's missing, you know, if you see yourself at the top, you know, and you think maybe there should be a seat here for administration, Shell. Incorporation.
Yeah. Because we're like the next top curators.
And feel free again to add if I missed a category, if I missed a task, feel free to add it. And then we can look at it and see where there are no interests, for example, and do we need to keep those? Do we need to keep watering those seeds? Yeah.
So that everybody, even if you don't want to wash the dishes, at some point you have to wash the dishes.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And if you don't like doing the laundry, at some point you got to throw your
But everything's got to get done.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing too is a cross-pollination thing. If you have an idea, like, you know, J. Mike Walker comes with a thing and sends it to a certain person, you know, we can all work.
So my suggestion is just my suggestion. I'll take a picture of this. My suggestion would be that you guys who ended up in the same seat or the same area to get in touch.